Hey YouTube, Paz Plays, and today we are doing an honest game review of Wizard101, the game that used to be owned by KingsIsle but has now been transferred to a different company. We're going to be talking about where this game stands nowadays, what's good about it, what's graphically good, what's audio, everything. We're going to talk about everything about Wizard101. So without further ado, what is Wizard101? Now, we all were kids when this came out. Well, probably most people were kids when this game came out a few years ago. All those ads with the frost giant, and there was a dragon, and there was a big like storm titan everywhere, and it was super cool on Cartoon Network. But now let's see how that game actually adds up. So essentially what Wizard101 is, it's an MMORPG where you go around, you're essentially playing a card game that gets a little bit more intense the higher in level you go. You get the first few levels free, and then it goes from there that, you know, you can pay for a membership and you can continue playing. We'll actually talk about that as we go on here, but I do want to just talk about the gameplay loop in general. I mean, honestly, I really enjoy this game, but I do want to make sure that I'm not biased. And if there's anyone from the Wizard101 community here, I mean, I'm sure the problems that I lay out on the table here, you're going to be able to agree with, and you're going to understand that I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I did grow up on this game, and honestly, I really do still enjoy it, but I know for someone that maybe has never played the game before, you know, telling them to get into it, there's definitely some problems that they're going to have to realize first. So the gameplay loop, honestly, the base card game is very, very fun. I mean, the whole idea is that you're going around the world, you're trying to save the spiral from all these evil villains. You know, you have these blades that you can power yourself up, you can weaken enemies so you can do more damage, you can make it so that they don't do as much damage, and there's a lot of intricacies that go through it outside of just the main area that you play in. So to be fair, you don't really get the full experience unless you play the whole game, and you know, why would you do that unless you watch a review first to see if it's even worth it? So, I mean, the higher you go, the better the game gets. What I will say is that the first like 40 to 50 levels, the game is a little bit of a slog if you're playing by yourself. If it's the first time you're playing, you don't have a mount. There's a lot of different things that could really make this game not a whole lot of fun for you. And that's a big problem I have with it. Once you do actually get to a point though, like level 50, level 60, when the game does genuinely actually get pretty interesting. That doesn't really work in the game's favor if the start of the game isn't super fun. Maybe that's just me going back and replaying it this past summer as I usually do with different people. Maybe I just don't enjoy it as much because, you know, I've already played it all. So maybe for the first player experience, it's not terrible. They are working on it, which I do have to give the devs some much needed praise for that they're actually putting the time into making that first play experience better. But I mean, still, it can be a little bit of a slog compared to games like World of Warcraft, in my opinion, where that starting experience honestly is a lot of fun. It just takes a whole lot of time, which I'm not super into. So I mean, when you do actually get into that gameplay loop, if you're going to be playing a lot, it can get boring even when you do get to that fun stuff as well. I mean, there's essentially 4 types of quests, or maybe even 3. I'm not exactly sure. You can kill the bosses, you kill enemies, you collect stuff from enemies, or you collect stuff from just walking around. That's essentially it. I mean, there's also other stuff like crafting, all that stuff, but that's not really the main line. The main line, you're just killing stuff, or you're picking stuff up, you're playing fetch, you're walking back and forth. And while it is fun to go to different areas every now and then, it can get really stale really fast. Without knowing what's coming next, you really have no idea of like, okay, this is what I'm playing for. It's more so I'm just playing to beat the world so I can get to the next one. But the thing is, there's a lot of other elements that I actually really do enjoy about the game. It's just that the basic gameplay loop can be very stale. Once you get to these really fun dungeons, like there's these Mount Olympus dungeons, and the bosses have different cheats, and they play the game in different ways, and they make it so that the card game isn't so clear cut, then it's fun. But your basic gameplay against just minions that are walking on the street, those are just the basic card game. There's no difference in how they play really, other than the spells that they use. It's not like they're changing the way the turns function and they can cheat and stuff. It's just basic. This is the basic Wizard101 experience, and 80 to 90% of the time, you're just going to be playing the basic Wizard101 experience, so I can understand why people maybe don't like that gameplay loop. I do enjoy actually the PvP a little bit. I'm not super great at it, but I do enjoy that the PvP is, there's some variation to it. The thing is, the pay-to-win aspects are definitely there, and it can be very annoying for someone that maybe isn't willing to put in an extra $10 or $20 on top of their membership. So that's also something that I could say is a little bit bashful against it, but to be completely honest, if you're playing Wizard101 just for the PvP, realistically, you should just be playing an FPS game. They're literally meant for the PvP experience, and that's just what you should go for. Now, moving on to just more of the aesthetic things outside of just the gameplay loop, I really do enjoy actually some of the later worlds in their art styles. The thing is, that's in the later world, and that's definitely meant for players that have already been playing the game for quite a bit of time. I want to look objectively, and I want to look at the entire game in question, and it's just clear to me the game was made very early on. It was in the 2000s, not even 2010s, that this game was initially released. So those first few worlds, they're a little bit archaic, and I can't lie, it does make the game a little bit of a slog to quest through those worlds like Mushu, for example, because the style just isn't there. And when you're playing it through a gameplay loop that is very repetitive, you want to make sure that that style is there and it is delivering. I can't really bash on the devs too much though, because I mean, the main money maker for them right now are the people that have been playing for a long time and keeping them on a subscription base. That's how they make their money. Not a whole lot of new players are playing this game, so I understand that. And even then though, they still have made it so that their initial world, they've revamped that, I think, almost entirely, and they've worked a little bit on Krakatopia. I'm not sure exactly if that's going to continue to happen. I don't think it will. But, I mean, it's definitely clear, though, that they are getting better at what they do. At the most recent world they added, which is Novus, that world is absolutely stunning. The music is fantastic. And all in all, I mean, it's a good experience. The problem is that you have to play probably like, honestly, upwards to at least 100 to 200 hours of just hard questing to even get to that point, and it's just a lot to get there. So again, in terms of the game as a whole, that definitely makes it a little bit more difficult to really urge someone to get into it. That being said, though, the audio throughout the entire game is just completely fantastic. The animations for all of the spells are completely fantastic. The problem is when you have just those same animations over and over again, it's very easy to overlook that and be like, yeah, okay, this is bad, and not really be thankful, like, wow, this is really well coded. But the animations, honestly, they're very good. And because of that, you don't really get tired of the animations that fast. Like, the animations still are pretty strong throughout most of your playthrough, and it's not really that annoying to get into. So I do have to say, like, the animations, the audio, everything about that game. Sometimes the voice acting is pretty terrible. But I mean, when it's an MMO game that was primarily marketed towards kids in the 2000s. The voice acting was not the important part. It was the animations, it was the music. If it was really intense, it made you feel like you were in battle. It was a lot of those things. And honestly, I don't think there's ever a soundtrack in Wizard101 that really misses. And if you actually sub to my main channel, I've used Wizard101 music for a few of my videos, and you probably didn't even realize. Actually, for this channel too, for the Get Stuff video, I actually used Wizard101 music, and you probably didn't even know. So I think that goes to show that if the audio is good enough for me to put into my main channel's videos, I think it's pretty good. Now, the last thing I have to say is, at the end of the day, does the game feel good? Does the game innovate upon pre-existing things? And to be completely honest with you, I would say Wizard101 does innovate on a formula that was the MMORPG era, and it's one of the only MMOs that exists past this time. I mean, Club Penguin died, RuneScape died at some point. Are there other games like it? I think other games like World of Warcraft, they just do it better. Final Fantasy 17, yeah, or 14, yeah, those games do it better. And that's totally fine to understand that. But for what it is, it did innovate the card game industry to put into the MMORPG industry, and it made it work. So, I mean, honestly, it does feel good. It is a standalone game. It is definitely not like anything I've ever played aside from it, other than like the MMORPG elements. It's a solid game. I just think the problem is, in order to really make it feel like a solid game, you have to get to a certain level, and then you have to keep playing and playing and playing, and it's just not good for what it is right now. And to be honest, I can't really fault the devs at that. That's just kind of how MMORPGs work. They develop over time. The game gets a little bit more intense over time. And for them to continuously go through on a new player experience is really difficult, because then that takes away from the people that are actually subscribing to them and giving them their money. So I understand why maybe this is just some of the problems that the game has. I cannot just forgive them for that and give them a 5 million star review. That's just a great game. And I also have to understand that the reason why I'm able to get through some of these slogs and gameplay loops is because I have nostalgia for the game. And I think anyone that really enjoys Wizard101 really has to understand there's probably a very large nostalgia base that is the reason why we still play this game to this day in our free time. If we didn't play it as kids and we just picked it up now when we're all 18-year-olds and have some money to spend on games, you know, I don't think this is something that we would be playing and saying it's a 10 out of 10. That being said, it's not super pricey. It's pretty inexpensive most of the time. There's lots of sales. You can play the game with a bunch of friends. It's a nice thing to just waste some time and kick back and relax. Do I think there's some problems with it? Yes. And I think everyone that's played this game or has seen people play this game can understand where that is coming from. So I'm feeling like this game probably gets a light to decent 5. Let me know what you guys all think. Is it great? Is it good? Is it a terrible review? I don't know. Just let me know in the comments down below what you all think. I think it was I think this is pretty based. So I mean, just let me know in the comments down below. As I said, look at all the other reviews that I do end up putting on this channel, and maybe check out the main channel too. But without further ado, but until next time, I've got to peace out and pass out. I'll see you in the next one.